Hello and welcome. This is Chapter 4, Geometric Constructions. In this chapter, I will be going over a variety of sketching exercises, although we will not be actually making any 3D models. The purpose of this is to teach you how some basic geometrical constructs and how you can use these to construct more complicated sketches than what you've seen so far, such as the sketch on the front page. What we're going to do is we're going to start and create a new part, and we will make sure that we are using the proper units. Right now we are working in inch pound second, and that's fine for us. Stay that way. And we're going to start a new sketch on the front plane and make sure that it snaps to the front plane so that we can see everything within the appropriate scale. Now, for those of you following along, I will be roughly following the book, starting at page 214. I may be doing things a little bit different, or doing a few additional things that the book may not cover. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to show a new tool, the 3-point arc tool, which you may or may not have used yet. And we're just going to do a generic line at an angle, and go back to our select tool, and then go to this 3-point arc. Now, it defaults to this center arc, so we will have to click the drop down, and we can see that there's a center point, a tangent, and a 3-point arc, and we're interested in the 3-point. So now you can see these are actually still the 3 different options, and you can see based on the 1, 2, and 3s the order of the appropriate clicks. So at your own leisure, I would encourage you to experiment around with the different ways of creating an arc. But for now, we'll do a 3-point arc, and the first point will be at one end point of the line, and you can see it's asking us where we want the end point of the arc to be, and it's just going to be the other end point, and we can change the diameter to be larger and smaller. Okay, so we'll just generically put it right about there. And we will go back to our select tool. So now if we want to bisect this arc, we can use the line tool, and we can we can start seeing a lot of these. Let's pay attention to some of these projected lines. We can see these projected lines are for vertical horizontal alignment with things that SOLIDWORKS thinks are important. So right now I can see it's aligning with the projection of the origin and this top line. This is the center point of our arc, and I can go vertically aligned with that. And if I start bringing this to, say, the arc, what you see is a few different things. You see the crosshair, which denotes center. So if I needed to get that, I'd be able to find that right there. There's this yellow dot with two bisecting lines. This is the midpoint of the arc, and actually, as you see, if I come over it in the yellow box right next to my mouse, you can see that's the midpoint relations. Now, as I go through this on page 419, there's a list of these common relations. It's worth knowing that there are many others that are not included on this list, so it's always good to sort of keep an eye out for what relations you're adding. You never want to unintentionally add a relation and not notice it, because sometimes that can get you into trouble. Also, if I go, you can see that similar bisecting point right there, and again you can see how it would like to add that bisection midpoint relation. So switching back to the select tool, let's delete these and move on to some angles. So I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to sketch a simple sort of V-shaped. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a center point arc. Okay, so this is going to be a different than the 3-point arc. We start with the center point and then go from one point to another. Now you can see that this is a coincident relation that was already implied into it. And if we want to bisect this line, we can click the midpoint and simply find the center the midpoint of that arc and very easily bisect this. Now I want to, before we go to the next part in the book, and for those of you following along, we're at about page 422. I want to show you one quick shortcut. Now I've deleted what we've just done, and I'm going to show you a quick shortcut on the line tool where you sketch lines, and you can see that it automatically wants to do another line. And I can do perpendicular, horizontal, vertical, or planar, collinear. And it snaps to all of these things. And it also snaps to various points. You can see, you know, this is a perpendicular projection of that point. But what I want to show you is that, say you needed to go and transition from a line to an arc to a line. I've got my line tool. If I come back to the center, you see these this concentric ring, and that's because what it has just done is it's transferred to an arc. Now, if I click, this arc is not, and go back to the select, this arc is somewhat constrained. There's a constraint of perpendicularity between this line and this arc. You can see at this point it's always at tangent to that 90-degree mark. Also, if you use the same tool, and again you come back and then you go out, and I do that, you can see that this one has this tangent relation. So sometimes you need to do a tangent or a perpendicular arc in this manner, and that can be a useful shortcut. Getting back to the book, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to divide a line into an equal number of parts. So we're going to draw a line, and then we're going to draw a perpendicular line right there, and we can see that the perpendicular relation has been added. And then we're going to add, just generically, 4 other lines. Another quick shortcut that you can use, as I showed you, going to it can switch to that arc. Another quick shortcut with the line tool is, if you for some reason didn't want to click, but you didn't want to constantly turn off and turn on the line tool, if you double click rapidly, it won't actually put the line in, but you still have the line tool. So double click, and you can see how that can very easily save you time. Now, what happens if, for instance, I'm going to delete this line. In the book, it describes you have a line right here. Now, in this case, there's been a vertical. We drew a vertical line by accident, and this sketch this is not a relation that we want, so we'll have to delete it. So we can just simply select it and delete it. Another possibility that you may or may not have done is you may have accidentally done a midpoint relation. But so now we're going to move on to aligning all of these. Now, we've got the perpendicular dimension. To add more dimensions, we can either go to Add Relation or simply hold Control, which is what I'm going to do, and select all of these lines and this line. Ultimately, we want them all to be parallel, so we'll just click Parallel, and you can see how it snaps relations to every single one of these lines, creating a chain between these 2 lines and those 2 lines, and these 2 lines and those 2 lines, and so on and so forth until all of them are parallel. Moving right along, we're getting ready to the point where we would like to dimension this. So this is just going to be a generic dimension. I'm not going to modify it at all. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do what's called an equation-driven dimension. And we're just going to go between these 2 lines. And rather than just saying, typing a number, what we're going to do is we're going to do equal, and then we're going to select this dimension. Now, if you wanted, each dimension in SOLIDWORKS has a name, and it's in a specific sketch. And it's possible for you to just type this out, and SOLIDWORKS should be good about getting it. However, you'll notice that it automatically comes up with D1 and D2. And if I delete this dimension, this current dimension that I'm modifying, you can see its name right up here. It's called D2. So sometimes, you know, the 1 and the 2, you can lose it, and it can be offset from something that you may see in a book or tutorial. So it is possible to change this, and I can call this width. And now later on, you know, if I choose to reference this dimension, it would be equal to width. But you always want to be aware of you know, things of that nature. So we want to do 1/5 that other dimension. So we'll simply do divide by 5 after. SOLIDWORKS is more than capable of handling equations. So if we hit OK, and it brings it back. Okay? So now we can add more equations, and we can do a couple of different things. We can either go through the same process of tying it to this first D1, or if we want to save a little bit of time, we can just have it equal this. And again, we see that it's width, and it has its new name, and so on and so forth. Now, by that I can get the value, but you have to have the equal sign in order to get the relation. And there we have it. The power of these equations is, as you see, I can move this around and I can change it, and you can see that they are always perpendicular to it. They're always the same size. I would like to show you how these sizes can dynamically change. If we change this dimension, these other ones will change accordingly. So if we bring it down to 3.5, you can see all of these shrink accordingly. This can become a very powerful tool in your design toolbox. Oftentimes you have different features that are all based off of one thing. Equations are one way of making it so that it's very easy to modify, which is an important thing to think about as you design parts. Always think about how you may have to modify this sketch or dimensions. To view the equations that we wrote, we can simply go to Tools, the drop-down menu. Sometimes Tools takes a while to drop down, so don't get frustrated with it. And we're going to go to Equations, and we can see that each of these values are right there. And we can also change them as we see fit. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to delete this. Now you see I just deleted this, and we have these equations. Now this has become red, and we can say what's wrong, and that's because our equations have not been deleted, even though the dimensions associated with them have been. Okay, so we will go into Equations, and we will just simply delete them by right-clicking and selecting Delete. And there we go. No more red, no more rebuild errors. So moving along, we're going to go to create a circle through 3 points. So we're going to draw a line, and we're no longer sketching, so we need to re-sketch. And we're going to sketch on this front plane. Okay, so now we're going to do a circle through 3 points. So we're going to draw a line and then a second line. And we're going to do a perimeter circle, and we're going to select the left endpoint, and then the right endpoint, and then the middle endpoint. And you can see that that is one way to draw a circle. Now, if we would like to do a line tangent to a circle from a given point, we can, and for those of you following along, we're on page 430. We can simply grab our line tool, click along the circle. This is automatically trying to do tangent, but as I bring it back, it's no longer trying to do tangent. Now, it's important, you know, as you do these sketch exercises, you should take the time to click and drag and manipulate them, because most of these sketches have been blue. And that means that they can move. And it's always important for you to know why they can move, because generally when you're designing a part, you don't want them to move. So oftentimes, knowing what it would take to prevent movement is very important. So next we're going to do a circle of a given radius tangent to 2 given lines. So we're going to do 2 lines just like we did before, and we're going to do a circle. I'm just going to choose 3 random points. We're going to dimension the circle, just an arbitrary dimension. And now we're going to add relations. So again, to add a relation, you can go up to here and click Add Relations, or you can simply hold Control and select the entities you would like to relate to each other. So we're going to do a tangency between this circle and this line, and then a second tangency between the circle and the other line. Now what you can see is by doing that, it has moved this around a little bit. So it doesn't look anything like what it should look like on page 432. But again, what I said before, it's blue, which means I can move it in a fashion, and now you can see just by simply dragging that line away, it was still able to comply with all of the relations on it, and now it looks a little bit more like what it looks like now. So what I'm going to do right now is just to get it so that it's a little bit more difficult to move it, we're going to take this and we're going to select this line, and we're going to fix this line. Now you can see this is a green box just like before. That means it is a relation, and the fixed relation, just like it sounds, it fixes it in space, and you can tell that because now it's black. I can't move it. I can still move these, and you can play around with that, but it makes it so that it's harder to move things around. The next thing is a fillet. Now oftentimes what you find is you have two lines coming, and it creates a sharp point, and you want this nice gentle arc between them to sort of alleviate that. Now one thing that's possible that you can do is, if you have sketched it in this fashion, you can use what's called the trim tool. So if you come up to the top of the screen and you see there's a trim and then there's an extend. So we're going to select the trim. And now this is sort of like a knife. You can see if I click and drag, I sort of have this trailing back behind me. And you can see what I can do with this is, if I trail it through this, you see how it trims it up to the next logical point. There's more specific trim options, but generally your power trim is all you need. And likewise, if I click and hold over here and then go through this point, you can see how that just trimmed up to that point of tangency, that connection point. So that's the trim tool, and it's helpful for you can see I can trim this up, and now we have a nice line. It still has the relations associated with it, but without all the extra pieces. Alternatively, what we can do is we can now see what I'm doing right now is I'm deleting this because it has relations and dimensions. This comes up, but I do want to delete it, so I'm just going to ignore it. But now let's look at another way we could generate that. You could just do a simple line to a line, and we can use what's called the sketch fillet tool, and we can click the point, and we can see a little preview that, and we can see a radius over here. So we can make this bigger. We had a 4-inch circle, so we'll just bring it up to 2-inch radius. Remember, this is working off of a radius. And there we go. I suggest students don't really use sketch fillets. Filleting on the feature end makes a little bit more sense, but sketch fillets can oftentimes get in your way and create extra geometry that you're not sure how to use. So moving on to the last exercise that we're going to work on. So we're going to draw a triangle, and what we're going to do is we're going to fix the third point of that triangle. Click the point, add the relation. We're going to make the bottom horizontal. The next step is we're going to make this line vertical, and we're going to add a dimension right here, and the book says 6.5. So now there's only one means of motion. There's only 1 degree of freedom in this. We can only change the size and the angle of this. We're going to actually make it so that we can no longer change that by adding an angular dimension between these 2 points. And now if we try to add another dimension of over here, we have a problem of over-defining. And that is because you can see that right now our sketch is black. That means that any additional dimensions or information we attempt to give it will be excess information, conflicting information, and the computer will not know how to deal with it very well. There'll be 2 options essentially. One is leaving it driven, which leaves it in light gray, and this dimension is essentially an annotation dimension just for you. The computer just derives it based off of everything else, and I can't change it or control it. Or if you choose to not have it as a driven dimension and leave it driving, it will highlight a whole bunch of your sketch and everything that it conflicts with. Moving on, if we delete the fixed relation, we can see it's blue, but it is a fixed shape, can't change, and we can drag it to the origin and coincident with the origin, and that's another locational tool that would allow us to get it. The fully defined tool is up here, and it is available for you if you have an underdefined sketch, which you don't know why it's underdefined. So moving right along, I'm going to put that 6.5 back. We're going to have a circle, and we're just going to do, again, I'm going to switch to a regular center circle, and we're going to include tangency relations, and we're going to maneuver this circle around, and we can see how we can move it. We can change its size. You know, if we bring it up here and we make it coincident with this vertical line, if we bring it to the midpoint, now it's fully defined. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for the rest of Chapter 4. You'll be practicing what you've already done, including creating some dimensions based off of equations based off of this sketch, but I'll let you do that on your own. I'm hoping that these sketch tools and sketch methods that I've showed you will be helpful to you. If I can leave you with one final thought, it's when you sketch, make sure you use fully defined sketches always, and make sure that you really put thought into how these things can change, because oftentimes what you may have is you may have a somewhat complicated sketch with only a few important dimensions, and you want to make sure that those important dimensions will change the sketch the way you would hope it would, and that all of the associated relations that you would assume are in SOLIDWORKS, which will allow it to adapt a little bit better.